Well, good evening. I hope we are being able to communicate here.
Yes, sir.
Okay,
I can hear you.
Blog Talk Radio is becoming a real nightmare. I hope we figure out either how to make it work or we find a replacement for it, because it is way too aggravating. I'm on a cell phone now as opposed to the direct connect. Every week it's a new issue. For example, right now I can't even access the switchboard. You don't even show that you're connected. Kirk and JB took multiple times to sign in, and I couldn't even call in on the host line.
Wow.
It is the most inept platform, and it just, to be able to do a program like this and to start off this aggravated week after week after nothing but frustration. And you can't even attempt to call in until 15 minutes before showtime. And so I've spent the last 20 minutes doing nothing but being aggravated. So I apologize for my frustration, but this has just become a horrible and inept platform. Well, we are in a horrible and inept world. Let's begin. Let's begin there. It is about as bad as it could possibly be. And I recall sharing a number of things. One thing that I shared turned out not to be true. Everything else that I've shared turned out to be correct. And the one thing that I shared very early on was that I was actually impressed based upon the Chinese government figuring out that the best way to deal with the coronavirus was to create temporary hospitals that were specifically designed for those who were sick, infected, and not to take the infected to existing hospitals to render them ineffective. You know, hospitals have sick people in them, the people that are most prone to die if they get this virus. And taking infected people into those facilities not only exposes those that are the most vulnerable, but it renders those hospitals incapable of doing what they were designed to do. And what the Chinese did, at least it appeared to me, based upon the videos that I saw and the pictures, is they created temporary tents, field hospitals that were specifically designed only to deal with those who got the coronavirus. The problem with that is that the Chinese government is the largest totalitarian government in the world. Man is basically rotten, and when man congregates in large organizations, he becomes horrific. The Chinese government is to blame wholly and completely for every death of this virus. They have deliberately concealed what has happened there, and by being far more interested in the disgusting scum that runs that country as the Communist Party, they're far more interested in their own grip on power than they are on the lives of their own people or anyone around the world. They have deliberately and knowingly lied. They have put the entire world at risk. The first study that was done of the contagion that grew out of China revealed that the first case of this coronavirus started in October. The Chinese didn't even acknowledge it until February. The first doctor that revealed the problem of the coronavirus was thrown in jail. He died.
Wow.
The Chinese government has done nothing but deny the existence of this virus and cover up the facts. Rather than 3,300 people in Hunan province dying from this virus, it's apparent that over 40,000 Chinese died from this virus. The number that was infected, we will never know. The fact of the matter is that when the Chinese send their tests abroad trying to brag about how they're helping the world, becoming the next world superpower, 80% of their tests fail. Their masks are defective. Their coronavirus tests are 80% invalid. We do not know how many people in Hunan were affected, but we know that it's in complete and total lockdown today. And we know that the Chinese government, based upon the cremation urns that they have sent into Hunan, based upon the 8 crematorium that have been running 24 hours a day since the virus was first revealed, that the actual death toll is 15 times what the Chinese revealed, and that it is ongoing, not ceased, and that the Chinese government has not only lied to the world, but that 95% of those who die from this virus will have died strictly because the Chinese government covered up this virus. Those are the facts. We should be disgusted by government, by man. It has implications here in America because some 40% of Democrats voted for Bernie Sanders, a communist.
Yeah.
Ignorant of the fact that when man has that kind of power in a communist government, it doesn't matter if it was Stalin or Mao, premier of China. Empowered man is gang mentality man, is disgusting man. I have watched at least 20 videos out of China showing what's really happening there. And the primary apparatus that exists in China, the biggest expense in China, is over the control of people. Because the communist government knows that their imposition on their people is draconian. And the only way that they're able to continue to be in power is to control every aspect of people's lives, building fences around them, requiring that their cell phones and their computers be monitored. That anyone in China who exposes the truth about that revolting government disappears and ends up dead. We ought to call this the Communist Party virus, because that's what it is. And frankly, I am repulsed. Now, the second thing that I shared with the world, everyone that would listen to this program, is that worldwide, politicians and the media and their reaction to the virus is going to be far more catastrophic, far more deadly, far more debilitating than the virus itself. That by shutting down business, by closing off the economy, politicians and the media are achieving what they wanted, which is absolute control over people's lives and absolute control over business. In so doing, they have removed everyone's freedom. They have shuttered businesses, and they have put people in a position within isolation that almost no one can handle. You go into a store and the shelves are empty. It is difficult already to buy food. Hospitals and doctors are screaming that they do not have protective gear. Well, who makes the gear? Businesses. Oh, but the politicians will say, we only shut down non-essential businesses. There is no such thing as a non-essential business. Everything is interconnected. The reason that no socialist or communist government has ever prevailed is they cannot manage the web of connectivity that exists between businesses. They have no concept of the value of money, the value of labor, the value of creativity, the importance of risk, or the fact that everything government has comes from business. Government is a pariah. They're a parasite. They don't create anything of value. And yet we're told that they are the only solution. We're blaming free enterprise for creating a hospital system that is unable to cope with this problem? Well, the fact of the matter is that 70 to 75% of the funding for America's healthcare system is now socialized. We have socialized medicine in America. If you don't like the healthcare system the way it is, then you ought to blame LBJ, who set us in this direction, and Obama. Our hospitals do not work because they are no longer free enterprise. They are controlled by government, and government can't do anything right. You wonder why doctors are complaining that they do not have masks when millions of masks exist throughout this country? Millions upon millions upon millions of masks. It's because they shuttered business, and now the government cannot manage the distribution of that protective gear. And everyone is screaming that the solution is more government control, when in fact the solution is less government control. The problem isn't a choice between economy and safety. Without business, there is nothing. Nothing. It produces everything of value. Business people are accountable. They understand the value of money. They understand the importance of inventory. They understand the logistics of distribution. They know how to negotiate. They understand supply chain. The idiots in the media who are touting more government control and the morons worldwide in politics haven't a clue. All they seek is more power and more control, and it is universal now throughout the world. The world has fundamentally changed and may never go back. Politics, government, is now valued above individual achievement, above people working together to create something of value. And as a result, the world is in the worst depression ever. And the solution of the government is to create the illusion of money and then throw that money around as if that's a form of compassion. All it does is destroy the value of the currency, the value of assets, the value of everything that everyone has ever built and conceived, and there's no way out of it. I knew it the moment it began to happen that everything we were doing was wrong. Now, I shared last week that you could look at a number of countries, like, for example, the Netherlands, where they did not shut down businesses. They asked people to be personally accountable. Or Sweden, where they did not shut down business. They did not dictate that their people no longer had any liberty, as most of the world has done. And they asked people to be personally responsible. And those countries are doing far better than those who for weeks now have deprived all people of liberty and have shuttered business. All you have to do is look at the numbers. The single most popular guy in America now is Governor Cuomo. And how in the hell is that possible when population centers around the world, the highest concentration of infected people with the coronavirus is in his state? He is considered the guy that is doing the best job. And yet when you look at the concentration of coronavirus as a percentage of population, it is worse in his state than it is any place else in the world. Isn't that alarming?
Should be.
I am frustrated by our universal ignorance and how we have found ourselves in this position and our inability to do what's right, our inability to take personal responsibility, our inability to recognize the importance of business. You know, there's all of these finger pointing around the world now that France and Germany and other countries are claiming America confiscated the masks that were being made in China that were directed to us, that we had ordered. Well, if America has intervened and got masks to come here versus someplace else, I guess they're doing what they should be doing. But the fact of the matter is, people in politics, people in government have no concept of the value of money. They'll spend anything because it's not their money. They didn't make it. They're not responsible for it. They have no ethics. And when you took business out of the equation, you have no means of knowing what is appropriate and what isn't appropriate. What's the right price? How much do you need? I mean, the very fact now that there are millions and millions and millions of masks, and yet you see doctors wearing the same mask day after day, should tell you the government can't do this. You know, one of the great examples is the Ruskies, the Russians, brought in tens of millions of masks and other coronavirus healthcare worker protection paraphernalia on one of their big cargo airplanes. And wouldn't you know it, that when we looked at the side of the cartons for who made the mask, they're one of the companies that America decided that we would put an injunction against, that we would ban, that we would condemn the world and any business for doing business with them. And yet they're the ones that send us the masks. Isn't that amazing? So I was frustrated because, quite frankly, the way to deal with a problem like this is to engage the productive force within society, which just happens to be business, instead of shutting it down, to encourage people to be free and be personally responsible, which is the opposite of what is happening. And if we had done that and realized that the solution wasn't having people locked up in their homes, the solution wasn't sending people that are sick to hospitals, the solution was quarantining the people who are
infected.
You know, there's this whole debate, should I wear a mask or should I not wear a mask? And the CDC doesn't want the average person in public wearing a mask because they want all the masks to go to people like themselves, healthcare workers. Well, the fact of the matter is, the mask doesn't do a healthy person a bit of good. The masks only work if you put the mask on the sick person.
Yeah, that keeps it from spreading.
Yeah, the reason that in Asia you see lots of people wearing a mask is that it is not considered appropriate to go out in public in Asia if you're sick without a mask. Pretty straightforward. People who are sick ought to wear masks so they don't spit all over and spew this stuff out of their lungs and out of their masks at people who are not sick. It's really not that difficult. And the people who are sick ought to be isolated from the people who are. Now I'm going to share an example, and then I'm going to tell you what Yahowah had to say. Because I learned what Yahowah had to say yesterday morning and decided I would share it. Everyone wants to talk about, look what the Italians did in isolating people. They shut down everything. They shut down business. They shut down everything, and they forbid people even to walk in the streets. Well, the death toll keeps climbing. They said the same thing and did the same thing in France. The death toll keeps climbing. They did the same thing in Spain. Shut out everybody. You have no personal liberty. Heck, in the Philippines now, if you walk outside and you don't adhere to the police's order to go back inside of your home, Gordy, the president, says, I want the police to shoot and kill you. In Africa now, young children, teenagers, have been shot dead by the police because they were perceived to have violated these restrictions. When the first case of coronavirus came to St. Croix, the island that I currently live on, I wrote the governor a letter. And what I told the governor was that it was appropriate for him to man up and ignore the HIPAA laws, be a courageous leader, and tell us where that individual has been, so that if we had been in those places, we know that we need to be tested. Well,
makes sense.
America is unwilling to do that. America is unwilling to tell anybody where the infected person has been. So no one knows if they've been exposed or not. So that's why we have this tsunami of death in New York. No one wants to talk about Korea. Everyone said, well, the Koreans, they squished this thing. The death toll, the infection rate in Korea is substantially reduced. Koreans didn't shut down business. Koreans didn't shut down their restaurants. The Koreans didn't order people to stay in their homes. They didn't deprive Koreans of their freedom. They didn't do anything that the rest of the world is doing, and they prevailed. You know why they prevailed?
They're responsible for themselves?
Nope. They did the right thing. What they did is they realized we have a technology today that can eliminate the spread of a virus like this. Okay. Everyone who tested positive, Google, who is the primary source of GPS information on our cell phones, there are 7.5 billion cell phone accounts today. Everybody walks around with their cell phone. These governments, Korea was the first, went to Google and said, you could do something extraordinarily important. What you can do is, now that we have told you that XYZ individual has tested positive, you can tell us exactly where that individual has been and when they have been there. And better than that, because you have the means of knowing everything about every cell phone, you can also run an algorithm so that you can tell who else was there when they were there. Who else might have been infected by that individual. And then you can send them a text, and you can tell every individual that was in the same place at the same time that they may have been contaminated, and they ought to go get a test. And then you can tell us whether or not they went to one of the testing centers and got the test. And then you can tell us whether or not they tested positive or not, and we can do the same thing with them. And that's what they did. In Korea, every person who tested positive, they didn't have to disclose their name. They just disclosed on a cell phone app where that individual was and when they were there, and anyone whose cell phone showed that they were there at that same time in proximity to that individual, they were sent a text and told to go get tested.
That's brilliant.
That's all it took.
Genius. And you don't have to disclose anybody's personal information. Everyone's privacy is secure.
Yep. Everybody's notified.
Yep.
That's the best part.
Let's just say that the person who was infected, privacy, HIPAA laws, oh my God, that they were known. They're lethal. What is more important? Revealing that this person lives in this place and they're infected, or allowing scores, if not hundreds of people to die because you protected their identity? When it comes to providing information that will save lives, it's vastly more important to convey the life-saving individual than it is to protect an individual's privacy. Now, in this case, Google found a way to protect everybody's individual privacy and still communicate all this information. But even if they hadn't, it was the right call. You know, Leigh and I were talking about this, and you know, initially she's a germaphobe, and she was very concerned for her own health. She's had bronchitis as a young woman, and well, she's still a very young woman even today. And because she is a young woman today, and a woman, female, with 2 X chromosomes, if she were to contract the coronavirus, she has a 1 in 500 chance of dying from it. I'm a couple of years older than she is, and I'm male. And so I only have one of those wonderful X chromosomes that is responsible for our ability to deal with disease in our body. If I get the coronavirus, I have a 1 in 10 chance of dying. The difference is between 2 and 5 times more likely to die as a male, and based upon my age. Now, in my case, it isn't going to happen, but it isn't going to happen for a reason that has nothing to do with viruses. It has all to do with the role that Yahweh asked me to play. Play is probably an inappropriate term, but the role that Yahweh needed someone to fulfill, because God just doesn't work alone, and Yehudim were unwilling to do what needed to be done. So I'm not saying this because I'm at risk. I'm saying this because it is asinine that the United States government, that spends trillions of dollars on spying on everything that you do online, on every phone call that you make, that deprives you of your basic rights, your constitutional rights, and will spy on every aspect of your being with face recognition cameras, with drones, with the largest Air Force outside of the U.S. Air Force, controlled by the FBI, strictly to spy on us. And with our computers and with the internet and with our cell phones, all monitored by the NSA. And yet the United States won't do the responsible thing. Why? Because they want to keep all of their spying secret for control purposes. They won't use it to save lives. There are a lot of takeaways from the coronavirus, and we're going to get to Yah's word. But this is a very unique time. The single most important takeaway from the coronavirus, there is one enormous positive from it. And that is when we have been proclaiming to Yisrael and Yehudah that you need to respond to Yahweh. You need to return home. You need to listen to what God has to say and respond, and you need to do it now, because the world's going to become stunningly inhospitable to you. And your only hope is in Yah. That it was difficult, maybe impossible, for Jews to recognize that one day could be so different than the previous one. We all have this cognitive dissonance that tells us there is no way that the world can be radically different. normal. Every day is the same. We go to work, we do our thing, we come home, we argue with the spouse and deal with misbehaving kids. No, I'm too cynical. That's true.
As the saying goes, same shit, new day.
Yeah. Well, guess what happened? About 2 to 3 weeks ago, the world changed radically. You were told you couldn't go out of your home. You were told you couldn't go to work. You could no longer earn a living. You were told you are now totally dependent on government, which is going to give you handouts. Your business was considered non-essential. All of a sudden, the basic things you need to confront a virus, like isopropyl alcohol, you can't buy. You can't buy toilet paper, for crying out loud. And in most places, you can't even buy food. Well, the world changed. Governments and the idiots in the media started to lambast anyone who didn't go into this total social isolation and choose public safety over economy and shut down businesses. That wasn't the answer. The answer was isolate the people who are sick and allow the people who are not sick to go on with their lives and to produce what's necessary to take care of those who are sick. But the number one positive takeaway is for Yisrael and Yehudah, Jews throughout the world, to recognize that the world can change one day to the next. You know, if you're in New York and you're a Jew, this thing is being blamed on you. To some degree, Jews are culpable. It was the Buddhistic religious community in New York that played a significant role in the spread of this disease. A Jewish lawyer, and he's got his synagogue infected, and their practices caused others to be infected, and then there was hundreds, and there was thousands. They played a significant role, and they aren't responsible even now. But while they are culpable, this disease cannot be blamed on Jews, and yet the political response is to blame it on Jews. This disease is
when it facts ever matter.
Communists, yes, right, because of the communists in China. And the reaction of the world because of the world's media and politicians has put the world into a Great Depression. We've never seen a time businesses were deliberately shut down the world over. And if you look at what's happening, it turned out to be counterproductive on all fronts. I don't know why no one is willing to listen to God. Would you be surprised to know God actually told us how to deal with the pandemic?
He told us everything else, so I'm not surprised.
Yeah. It's there.
In the Torah. It's in the Torah.
Yes, it is.
Yahweh specifically told us how we ought to deal with the pandemic. Leah brought this to my attention yesterday. And so I decided I would translate it, and I want to share it with you.
Okay.
It is in Korah, Leviticus 13, 45 and 46. Right in the heart of the Torah. It reads, "Then the person infected with the contagious disease, the matzorah, the individual with a serious and dreaded chronic condition, especially an epidural condition. It's a compound of ma to question the implication of sarah, an infectious and communicable condition, suffering from the pandemic. Asher Ba Hu Ha Nega, who is revealed as being associated with the spread of the plague. His clothing on his own volition should be torn, loosened, so it's more flexible. His head should be avoided. And upon his face, he should cover it. He should wrap it with a piece of cloth, a face mask, and then announce, "Consider me socially contaminated and infected." All of the days the infectious plague is associated with him, he shall continually be considered extremely unclean and socially contaminated. He must be separated and distanced from others. He should consistently stay away from the residences and public places associated with the population centers of his household and settlement. Yes, God is in favor of face masks, but he's not telling the healthy to wear the face mask, is he?
No.
Sick ones.
So here, 3,500 years ago, God said, voluntarily, the individual who is sick ought to wear a face mask. And then he said, the person with that infectious disease been socially contaminated. In other words, they got it from social contact. And rather than telling everybody, you stay home, rather than telling everybody, you can't work, rather than shutting down every restaurant, rather than confining people to their homes, rather than having an absolute deprivation of freedom, what did God say?
Separate.
The contaminated person. The contaminated person.
Stay your sick butt at home.
Ought to be isolated. Separate the contaminated person, not everyone else. Everyone else continues to work. They continue to contribute. Goes on. But the contaminated person is separated. As I wrote as a conclusion of this, brilliance, Dr. Yah. I especially appreciate the fact that rather than confining others, depriving everyone of their freedom, shutting down the economy, you, Dr. Yah, are advocating separating the infected individual so that they do not contaminate the entire community, to the detriment of families and the mental health of your people. Also, recognize that face masks only work when they are worn by the person who is contagious, so that they don't affect the health of individuals who are caring for them. And speaking of health care, Yahweh actually instructs the priests in the statements which follow on how they should deal with stricken individuals, right down to the point of denoting the duration of the examination. When people are quarantined for travel for the coronavirus, how many days are they quarantined?
I think it's about 15, isn't it?
14 days.
Okay.
Guess how many days Yahweh says that you ought to quarantine the individual?
2 weeks.
Probably a fortnight, too.
14 days. 7 days if they're anti-symptomatic, 7 more days if they show symptoms, 14 days. And then Yahweh prescribes a means of washing their clothes, their masks, and the other things that are associated with them. And he provides an antibacterial, antifungal, and antiviral agents to use in cleaning their clothes. Simple. You know, I got to tell you, when I read something like this, where Yahweh's approach is consistent with what instinctively I knew had to be true. This is the way to deal with this. and you read something like this, you say, this being part of his family really works. Listening to him makes a difference. If you listen to him, if you observe what he has to say, if you respect his point of view, and you do it long enough, you'll start to think like him. Your perceptions, your perspective, your judgment will reflect his. So we not be surprised that God's approach to this is exactly what we've been saying. And yet, even in Israel, the home of the Torah, they can't do it this way. Amazing, isn't it?
It is. Well done.
Now, Kirk, you said that you had a chance to translate some of this. Was it from Torah 13:45 and 46, or was it elsewhere?
No, it was 45 and 46, and I actually will write it up so that perhaps James might want to put it on his website and show, because what I kept getting was I got that. I knew that's where you're going to go with it because that's what it says. But what I kept doing is I was looking up all the names, all the words, and I also looked up, instead of saying leprosy, that doesn't have to be leprosy. It can be a lot of different things, but it also, I'll just toss one at you before I do the other part. It says in the leprosy is a viral infection spread by nasal secretions and droplets. It affects the upper respiratory tract and is associated with extreme fevers, and it gives some different type of examples and everything. So the word tesareth, from tesar, the verb, the disease, which is also the plague, qualifies for that. But the thing that really got me, as I was going through this thing, I kept looking up every word once again, and it became the plague of death. And that's what I'll present to y'all later so you can see it in absolute detail. And this is also the same method that Yahweh says to shut away and put the cloth over the mouth of the talking apparatus, known as Paul, known as Muhammad, known as these evil people. And then I started thinking about, where the worst things were happening. And we've called out Babylon to be the three Babylons, the Middle East, which is I have read, I haven't been checking lately, but Iran, Iraq, and Iraq is dedicated to Iran, so it's all the same thing now. That was a terrible place that spewed it out. There was Italy suffered from it terribly, and of course the United States is suffering from it terribly. China is an enemy to begin with to Yahweh because they play a major role in the Fourth World War when they invade the Middle East as well. So they're culpable. They're just bad dudes all around. So for this sort of thing. So you're right on the money on all that stuff. I looked at one of the words, the plague. I was interested in the word plague as used for plague, tesara. Tesad is the first letter. It means to wait, to rest, to receive, or be revived and renewed, which are all positive things, but it also means to snare and to hunt. And to sneak up on. The second word is rosh, which is the head of a man, atop of first beginning, and someone who is observant. And then yin is the eye, to observe, to see, to know, perceive, and watch, and also one's perspective. And when you put the first three letters together, you've got the snarer, the hunter, who's observant, looking at his through his perspective. There's nothing about Yahweh in there the way they lay out. And then if you add up those three numbers, you have 360. So I'm saying, well, that's an interesting clue. But I'll put all this together where you can read it. But it really becomes a metaphor of how to deal with, and it gets even better on 46. But because I was working right up to about 5 minutes before I called in, I didn't get a chance to lay it all out where it reads real well. But it was the most fascinating thing. It's like so many things that Yahweh says. There's an underlying story behind it that also applies to these to the bigger plague in life, which is the plague of death, Paul, the lies spewed out by the Islam, and even rabbinic Judaism, who turns his people away from him. So it was just, I was amazed, and I'll prove to you by next week. I'll prove to you every one of those words in there has implications that will support that thesis. So I'm sorry. If I go on air, it'll just be choppy, and everybody will say, So I'd rather put it all together. It's been a rather hectic 2 days, I'm afraid. So, but believe me, there's more to the story than just that. Yeah, that's the way he handles diseases.
Yes. Now, you mentioned there was a correlation you even thought between the Babylons.
Yeah. Well, I was my correlation there because where's the plagues? Who's most affected by the plague? And I thought the tie-in there was because Italy is one of the Babylons. The religious Babylon, Roman Catholic Church, the horror that it is. The Middle East, and in particularly, and with it struck heavily with the in Iran and Iraq because they congregated. And then the other Babylon, so the Middle East is the Babylon. You say that covers the area of the old-fashioned, the old original cities of Babylon. And then you've got the United States, which is absolutely modern Babylon. We're the religious perpetrators of the Roman Empire muscle man. The same, the military. We're no different than the Roman Empire. So, it's all, and all of those are the big plagues of death, and that's where God kind of thumped them. This is a reminder, a wake-up. This ain't the big events. The big events are still coming. It's miserable, I'm telling you, to be in California right now. You cannot leave. I go places. I did have one funny story I can tell you today. I had to go to the bank. I had to transfer some money. And I knocked on the door and answered 3 questions, and they let me come in. And I walked over to the teller, and I had a mask on, and I'm not wearing the mask because I'm worried I'm sick, because I know if I'm sick. But around this neighborhood, when I walk the dog, nobody will even come close to you. They walk across the street, even to talk.
It just makes everyone else feel a little more safe.
I just cover, yeah, exactly. It's like, and then I'm wearing, and then when I go to the grocery store, I wear gloves because people look at you like, and don't, for God's sake, don't sneeze or cough or clear your throat. So I walked into the bank and I went over to see my favorite banker over there, and I said, when's the last time that somebody came in that you couldn't fingerprint, wears a mask, and you don't know who they are? Come into the bank, you don't know what's in my bag. How do you know I'm not going to stick you up? Instead of saying, hello, come on in. So I'm on film somewhere. I hope I'm not on the midnight news or something, or a late night news from this confused with a guy robbing the bank. But that was really funny. They just looked at me like, oh, gosh, you're right. So now's the time to stick up a bank. They can't tell the difference. So
yeah, it is absolutely stunning what has happened around the world. And California was the first state, of course, to shut down. And some people will say, well, look at the number of infected people in California and the deaths, and compare that to New York, which shut down later, and the governor was right. What people don't seem to be able to do is to look at things in context. Mm-hmm. You know how much bigger California is than New York?
Well, we're huge. We're geographically.
Like 250, 300 times larger?
Yeah, I would think. Yeah.
I mean, the difference is people are concentrated together in New York. They're not concentrated together in California.
Yeah, we don't build giant skyscrapers because of earthquakes.
No,
we can't go that big.
The concentration of people is entirely different. One is like 140,000 square kilometers, and the other is like, I think it's 1/250th of that. Mm-hmm. And it's just infinitesimally large, or one smaller than the other. Sunshine, warmth.
Mm-hmm.
So this virus hates the sun. Culturally, on how people in New York live within their communities culturally, with young and old clustered together. I mean, it's just
everyone has to
radically different.
No. In a building, you have to go up and down the elevator, and everybody has to touch those buttons. I mean, everything is easily transmitted in a place like that. Whereas I don't go in many elevators unless I'm at the hospital. So, guys, you got, it's not even, it's apples and oranges.
Correct. Now, here you are in a state, fewer people have died from the coronavirus than from almost any of the top 20 or 30 ailments affecting California.
No question
and
whatsoever.
Your wife is recovering from cancer surgery, and she's had 4 more surgeries.
Three major surgeries and a whole lot of procedures.
Yeah, and you can't even be there for her.
No, I can't.
They are. If you were to try to go there, they would have you arrested.
Yes, they would, and they threatened it if I didn't leave.
That's ridiculous.
Isn't that
no.
stunning beyond belief? You can't be there for her. And
no.
What happens when we're in a situation where we don't have the support of family? We don't have our loved ones with us.
Well, it's depressing. I know she is depressed. Yeah, absolutely. She may be listening to this. I don't want to say too much because I don't want to upset her. But I mean, I know she's. When I talk to her every day, that's the only thing that I can do. And but it's
so repulsive that you can't be there for your wife.
Correct.
And that's a dictatorial order by the governor.
Yes, sir.
What a horrible thing to do. And you've made your wife more vulnerable by allowing these hospitals to be the recipients of coronavirus, as opposed to setting up one of the big arenas, the sports arenas. Why not use them?
Yeah.
Temporary hospitals.
Well, then nobody else is using them.
A lot of people make party tents. Why not set up a big tent and take the people to those kind of places?
Mass units. It works.
Yeah.
No. You know, they say, well, there's not enough incubators. You know that some fellas, you know, I don't know if you've ever seen the kind of incubator that's used in an ambulance. It's this balloon that you squeeze, and you squeeze the balloon, and it forces air into a person's lungs. It's just a balloon.
I think you mean ventilator.
Yeah.
Ventilator. Yeah, ventilator. They're there's a balloon you squeeze, and so guys said, well, that's easy enough. The balloons are available. The tubes are all available. All we need is a rotating arm on a motor, and to have it push the balloon. Pushes it at the right pressure, at the right rate. Now you got a ventilator.
Yep.
And you can make one of these for about $300. And you make all the existing parts. Why aren't we doing
There was
that?
a guy who developed a way to 3D print a valve that takes scuba masks and turns them into ventilators. You can 3D print it for pennies.
Yeah.
It's not complicated. All you're doing is adding a little air pressure through a tube.
Well, they can't do it if they're at home.
No, you can't do it if you shut down business.
That's right.
You know, we've it's just absolutely astonishing. Now, I'd like to turn to what's called the 118th Mizmor. Let's just go through it and see what Dowd has to say and see how much of it is pertinent to our time. It begins, choose of your own volition to articulate what you know, acknowledging your appreciation to Yahowah. He is generous and good. His enduring love, unfailing kindness, and genuine mercy are truly everlasting. I was out on a fishing trip with a couple of guys. One is just very interested in knowing more about Yahowah and the Torah and the like. And he was just apoplectic over this idea that Now, how could God allow the Holocaust to happen? Why does he allow, things like the Soviet Union? He came from Romania, where America's intervention in the Second World War in Europe, Romanians in worse shape than they were under Adolf Hitler, because the Soviets were far more cruel and far more effective in controlling people's lives than were the Nazis. And so, how could God allow that to happen? And you said, free will. If God doesn't allow that to happen, what do you want him to do? You want him to intervene to stop every negative thing from happening? And if he intervenes to stop everybody from doing anything that is harmful, then you have absolutely no choice but to either do nothing or do things that are positive, and you have no longer free will.
That's right.
And so it just can't be done. God can't be real, just, fair, and allow people to make their own decisions and then intervene every time somebody makes a bad decision that costs a lot of lives. And
I don't get how free will is so hard for people to understand.
It seems so simple. And yet, Christianity created this religion based upon this notion that the God of the Torah was mean, and that you needed a new God, Jesus, the God-man, who was merciful. You couldn't expect God to say, well, you actually have to know me. You actually have to care enough to listen to me to be saved. Oh, no. We're going to have a new God where all you need to do is believe. We wouldn't want to have to do something to engage in a relationship with God. No, no, no. It's a gift. Just accept it. And the fact of the matter is, the God of the Torah, he is genuinely merciful. His kindness is unfailing. His love is enduring. His mercy is genuine. He is exactly as he ought to be. But he is not loving. He is not kind. He is not merciful to those who are religious, to those who are militant, to those who are conspiratorial, to those who are political. He loves his family. He loves those who care enough to listen to what he has to say and are wise enough to rely on him. So it's all about free will. The 18th Mizmor Psalm begins, choose of your own free will, Yada, to articulate what you know, acknowledging your appreciation. Yada is obviously related to Yada, Y-A-D-A, and Yada is Y-D-H-A. And so it's a feminine form of knowing, and it has this implication of conveying your appreciation based upon what you've come to know. Confess your admiration based upon what you know and understand, you perceive and experience. To Yahweh. When you come to know Yahweh, I'm going to tell you, it's impossible not to love him. The only way to not love Yahweh, not respect Yahweh, is not to know him. If you know him, you're going to respect him. If you know him, you're going to revere him. If you know him, you're going to recognize that he is genuine and good. Dowd did. That's why he made this declaration. It's a declaration the world has missed. The God of the Torah, prophets, and Psalms is loving and kind. He is genuine and merciful. Generous. He's good. Pleasing and agreeable. These are all his eternal hallmarks. They represent his character. But it's hard to sell a new religion if the actual God is approachable and loving and accepting and merciful. So they had to make him mean, fearful, so they could control people's lives.
Mm-hmm.
This then next says, Israelites should choose of their own volition to say, indeed, his enduring love, his unfailing kindness, and genuine mercy are indeed eternal, everlasting. Now, why would God say Israelites if he meant to say Goyim, Gentiles? Why would he say Israelites if he meant to say Christians?
He doesn't misspeak, so.
I mean,
if you were a Gentile
Christians,
and you agreed to that and became one like
Yeah.
this, then you would be an Israelite.
are Christians,
Mm-hmm.
is their conception of God that their God is so stupid, so inept, such a bad communicator, so old that he's having a senior moment, that their God doesn't know the difference between a Israelite and a Goyim, a Gentile?
Impossible.
No, but they must. Because when they read this, that's not what they're going to say. They're going to say that applies to their church. But no, it doesn't.
Yeah.
It applies to Israelites. And it says, Israelites, you should choose of your own volition to say, indeed, his enduring love, unfailing kindness, and genuine mercy are eternal. Oh, that's a real problem for them. They're Christians too, because they say that no, the Torah only existed until Christ. How many times I've heard Christ? I said, "What's a Christ?"
Yeah.
No, what's a Christ? Hey, last time I checked, Yahowah communicated in Hebrew, and Christ is based on a transliteration of a Greek term, and the Greek term means to use drugs. And by the way, there was no Jesus. There wasn't even a J until the 17th century. And his last name is definitely doesn't rhyme with Zeus. And Christ isn't a name. You know, in Hebrew, people don't have last names. Not interesting. They only have first names. You can't be Jesus Christ because there are no last names, and Christ isn't a name. And he wasn't Greek.
Yeah. Well, if it was a title, it would have to be Christ Jesus, like Queen Elizabeth.
Yeah, right. But then the problem is, he's not the Messiah.
No.
He was never anointed.
Yeah.
There isn't a single prophecy that identifies him as the Messiah. Not one. Do you think that if God intended for him to be the Messiah, he might have said so?
I think he would have announced.
Do you think if he intended for him to be the Messiah, he might have anointed him?
I think so.
Was there anyone that was asked to take olive oil and all of the ingredients that Torah prescribes for anointing and to anoint him as the Messiah?
No.
No.
Never.
No prophecy of him being the Messiah. No anointing as the Messiah. He's not the Messiah. The Messiah is Dowd. He's also not the Son of God. Why do you think he called himself the Son of Man if he was the Son of God?
You forgot.
Why does God say
Senior
that
moment.
Dowd is my son and I am his father? Why doesn't God once say in all of his prophecies that Yahowah is going to be the Son of God? Not once. Is the Passover lamb ever the Son of God?
Nope.
But why don't you tell me? I'd like to be edified here. And since Christians think that that Jesus is God, why don't you tell me a single prophecy and all of those prophets that names and says anything about Jesus? How many of them
That's not going to happen.
speak of Jesus?
Devil,
Okay, let's
zero.
go back to the original Hebrew name. How many prophecies are there about Yosha? The name Yosha by name? None.
None.
Not one. How in the world could he be the big hoop-de-doo, the Son of God, the Messiah, the King of Kings, God in the flesh, if there isn't a single prophecy about him? Oh, but Christians, but there's all these prophecies about him, he's just not named. Yeah, guess what? In all those prophecies, there is a name.
The ones that are named by named Dowd?
Yeah. And every one of those prophecies, did you think is about him? They're specifically about Dowd, and they say they're about Dowd. That gets you right back to the same problem. Is your God so stupid that he doesn't know the difference between Dowd and Jesus? It is astonishing that these kind of statements are there, and no one seems to be able to deal with them. Never dismiss the realization that Yahweh's focus was on, is on, and forever will be on Yisrael. He has never had a church, doesn't speak anything about a church, doesn't have a word to say about a church. While he does include Gentiles into his family that have been grafted onto the branch of Dowd through the covenant by attending the Moed Mikra, we come to Yahweh through the same Torah.
Yes, same Passover door.
Same Passover door. Later this coming week, we will celebrate Pesach. Pesach is my favorite day of the year. And I never celebrate Pesach without recognizing that Pesach is also the first day of Matzah. And
yes,
there is nothing I enjoy more. We are not degrading what Yosha did. We're celebrating what he did. Christians ignore what he did because he was the Pesach lamb.
Especially in Noah Matzah.
Doorway to life.
Yeah.
And so I am going to celebrate, honor, be grateful for what Yahweh did for us through Yosha and him serving as the Pesach lamb. Because it is stunningly important. And then you had the pooper today came out and said, boy, it's a tough time for the world, and all my big prayers, I guess they didn't work because, Italians are dying in greater numbers than anybody else. So maybe I'm not going to pray anymore because that makes me look really stupid. Makes me look inept. So I'm just going to say, well, we're approaching Easter weekend. The resurrection of Jesus will give you hope. Yeah, right. Why don't you tell me the number of times the Torah speaks about the Passover lamb being resurrected? Okay, we barbecued that sucker. That was good. What are we going to do, round him up so that he can bah again? You eat the Passover lamb. The Passover lamb dies. So that those who avail themselves of its sacrifice can be nourished and live. Passover lamb is never resurrected. That's not the point. And bodily resurrection is the most counterproductive thing in the universe. That is the reason,
who wants
just
that?
to absolutely underscore this point, what happens with the body of the Passover lamb after all the good parts are eaten?
Destroyed.
It's disintegrated.
Incinerated.
Exactly.
That ought to be enough to tell you the Passover lamb, not bodily resurrected. And if Yosha wasn't the Passover lamb, he was nothing.
Mm-hmm.
And if you don't understand his sacrifice in the context of Passover, matzah, then it has no value whatsoever.
Yes.
The family of Aaron, please, I implore and beseech you, of your own volition, amar, choose to confess and want to profess in the call imperfect jussive. Truthfully, surely, his enduring love, unfailing kindness, and genuine mercy are surely eternal. Okay, so the first time it just is generic, right? First time it's totally and completely generic, and it speaks of boy, my computer here is failing. I rebooted it in the middle of the show, and now I can't even get Word to work once again. This is exceedingly frustrating. But the first is generic. It just spoke of we should all do as though choose of your own volition to celebrate the fact that Yahowah is Almighty God, that He is merciful, that He is loving, that He is caring. The second is specific to Yisrael, and it tells us that Yisrael should make this same declaration. The third is specific to Aaron. Now, why do you think he goes down to the house of Aaron should make that declaration? Family, household of Aaron, please, of your own volition, say truthfully, his enduring love, unfailing kindness, and genuine mercy are surely eternal. He's repeated the same thing 3 times, but each time, everyone, Yisrael, house of Aaron.
Mm-hmm.
Well, Aaron was the wayward brother of Moshe, right?
Right. He's also
he is
priest.
stained by one of the worst decisions of all history.
Oh, God, I guess.
He was complicit in the worship of the golden calf.
Yeah, the bull.
One
Yeah,
Moshe
he created.
was
He made it.
Yeah. And so by referring to the house of Aaron, God is saying that his love for the children of Yisrael endures in spite of what they have done. If God can love the house of Aaron, he can love anyone who is willing to listen to what he has to say and capitalize upon it. That's why it's the house of Aaron. And oh, by the way, Aaron means informed free will.
Yes. Yeah, I forgot. Yeah, that's right.
Chorus, the world needs to hear. The God of the Torah is lovable. He's merciful, at least toward those who respect him and revere his name. I've shared a bunch of times on this program and in writing something that I know is uncomfortable. I'm sure it's uncomfortable for a lot of people to hear. But my relationship with God is the father I never had. It is best friend, the inspiring professor, where I can't wait to go to class the next day. I don't have a relationship with him as God, but instead as dad, teacher, friend, companion. I realize the difference between our capability. He's a 7-dimensional construct. He created the universe. He authored the Torah. He enabled this path. And, I'm just a puny person. But everything just seems to work better, feel better, make more sense when we have this kind of relationship. Approachable, lovable. He's fun. This says, those who respect Yahweh, I implore you, choose of your own volition to convey, surely, his enduring love, unfailing kindness, and genuine mercy his devotion and loyalty, his affection and commitment to the relationship are absolutely everlasting. So it's those who are listening to Dowd, those who would consider themselves Yisrael, those who are wayward in the house of Aaron, and all the rest of us who have come to respect Yahweh, recognize that he's kind, loving, merciful, approachable, committed to the family relationship. God's fun-loving. He's kind. He's genuinely fun to be around. 18:5 says, during times of difficulty, I called upon Yah, and he answered me. In the vast expanse and the freedom of Yah. What an interesting word. It's the first time I think I've encountered it in all these 18 years. Yeah, Merkab. In the infinity of space-time and with the capacity to grow of Yah. He answered me. Now, this is to say, yeah, God is 7 dimensions. God can't enter our 3-dimensional world. God is where we want to go. And yet, through his set-apart spirit, through his malach, he can engage and respond to us. And if we do what Dowd did, if we respect him, we come to love him. We recognize who he is, what he's offering, what he expects in return, then God reciprocates. That's the nature of a relationship. When his covenant children call on him, he responds. You know, if you're the Poper, and you're there in the Vatican, and you're praying for this coronavirus to go away, and it isn't happening, guess what? He ain't listening. He's not responding to you. You discussed him. But if you say, you know, God, this would really help me do a better job of understanding your word and sharing it and of perceiving and conveying insight, he's going to listen and he's going to respond. What a wonderful sentiment. The vast expanse and the freedom of Yah. Unlike the religious and political institutions which seeks to control, Yah wants us to be free to express ourselves, to live exciting and fulfilling lives. It's his intention for us to explore the vast expanse of the universe that he has created for our edification, for our enjoyment. We're going to celebrate Pesach. Pesach is the doorway to the vast expanse of the freedom of Yah. Not the doorway into servitude. It's not the doorway into worship. It's not the doorway into bowing down. It's not the doorway into being controlled. It's not the doorway of obeying. It's not the doorway of laws. It's the doorway into the vast expanse of the freedom associated with Yah. That's why the Hebrew word that is always rendered salvation, that salvation is like the fourth meaning of the word. The primary meaning of Yasha is to deliver, to liberate, to free. And when you've been delivered from harm's way, you've been liberated from the controlling aspects of humankind, and when you have been free to enjoy life in the vast expanse of Yah, oh, by the way, you've been saved. That is the reason why the first statement that Yahweh wrote in stone. He didn't say, I'm Yahweh, and I'm the one who saved you. No. I'm the one who led you out of slavery. I'm the one who removed you from bondage and the crucible of human oppression.
So why doesn't that resonate with people? When I mean, everything about him is to set you free, and everybody thinks if you go to God, you're being controlled. It's just because their perception of religion is God, or the God of religion.
So they want you to submit to him, to obey him.
But it just isn't there. Volition is volition.
When Governor of California and then 35 other states followed, when they imposed total control over the people, when they removed everyone's freedom, because it's the antithesis of what God intended.
Yeah.
God
I got a
intended
letter. Sorry.
And so that's what we ought to keep in mind, is that anything that usurps freedom is inconsistent with God. With Yah, the vast expanse of freedom. Yahweh approaches me and draws near. I'm not intimidated. What can man do to me? How can mankind affect me? There's no reason to fear someone you love, so why would anyone be intimidated by God, especially when someone loves you in return? And while mankind has been fearsome for millennia, and when man congregates and assimilates power, he assumes gang mentality, which is the history of civilization. When we're in Yah's company, we're bulletproof. Now, God gives us Gabor. He gives us a spirit of courage and of boldness. Because when we're in his company, we are bulletproof. That doesn't mean that we won't stub our toe and bruise our knees. It doesn't mean that we won't fall down from time to time. It doesn't mean that we won't get the sniffles and a sore throat and, systemic poison ivy, for example. It just means that when we are part of God's family, there is nothing that can be done to us that's going to have any lasting effect. Terry's listening to this show, Kirk, and Terry's been through a lot recently. And Terry knows that one day soon she's coming to one of two homes. She's either coming back to your home or she's going home to be with Yah. And both of those are good options, because eventually she's going home to be with Yah anyway, so it's just a matter of when, not where.
Yeah, yes.
And so, yes, it's been tough. But think of the difference between what she's been enduring these last 4 months and what she's going to enjoy.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, if anybody was ever in a position to say, oh, thank God, I am no longer burdened by that
free.
body.
That's
I am free in the vast expanse of the freedom of Yah. She's going to enjoy it. I'm hoping that you get to enjoy her company and she gets to enjoy yours, and we all get to enjoy her being part of our family here, and that it's another 7 years or so before she goes with the rest of us. But we know that she's going to be free. Yahweh approaches us and draws near, and we are never intimidated. And as a result, there's nothing, even a doctor can do, that's going to harm us. There is no reason ever to fear someone you love. Now, I'm asked countless times, it happened even today, do I think of man as basically good or fundamentally bad? My answer is always the same. Individuals can be either good or bad. They can often be both. As civilizations, as nations, mankind has always been oppressive and vicious, deadly and deceitful. You can't name a civilization throughout time that was most engaged in human sacrifice, most engaged in conquest to enslave a workforce and to take land and possessions that were not their own.
Okay, good.
Most deceive their people by integrating the politics and religion together as a control mechanism. The few are always empowered and the men would always suffer. There is no such thing. And all people say, oh, but America, it was different. Oh, yeah?
God, this America's terrible.
101 wars since the first colonists landed in the New World. 101 wars in 400 years. The savages are the colonists, not the people that were here. Stole their land, deceived them, poisoned them, murdered them. And you look at the wars that we fought and the behavior that we have manifest, and even our judgment, what we consider the greatest generation. Oh, look at Pearl Harbor. We lost 3,000 men, and we sacrificed 350,000 of our own men and killed hundreds of thousands of women and children, burning them alive. Vengeance. No. Collectively, man engages in gang mentality, and it's extraordinarily sad. Yahweh is concerned about me, ready to help, assist, and support me. Therefore, I shall consistently direct my gaze upon those who shun and dislike me. Now, that's a really interesting perspective. So the first thing Dowd says here is that Yahweh, his father, is concerned about him. We know that. Yahweh is ready to help him. You know, this is when the first time I translated this, I said, oh, my God. It just says here, Yahweh is Dowd's Azar. You know the first place time Azar is used in the Torah, Prophets, and Psalms? Now, this said, Yahweh is Dowd's Azar. Let me tell you the first place it's used. As soon as I read this, I just got like weak kneed. I said, I cannot even believe I just saw that. It said of Towrah.
Oh.
Yahweh gave Towrah to Adam to be Adam's Azar.
Azar,
yes.
Yeah.
Same exact word. Yahweh is Dowd's Azar, ready to help, assist, and support. He is my helper. He is my assistant. And you read that and say, whoa, wait a minute. How is that possible? But it's possible because that's Yahweh's intent. Yahweh does not work alone. He works through people. The only way that he can work through people is to assist them, is to support them, is to help them. You know, you don't think that the 80-year-old Moshe, old stutter bones himself, waltzed into Egypt and said, all right, I want my people. Let them go. No. I don't think so. No. Yahweh supported the man that he chose to work through. Yahweh supported Dowd. What fathers should do. But this is the same word that is used of Towrah and her relationship with Adam. Then the next part of this, therefore I shall consistently direct my gaze upon those who shun and dislike. So because Yahweh is supporting me, I'm going to keep my eye on those people who are going to degrade my relationship with Yahweh. Well, who are those people? Christians.
The religious, the political.
Christians. You know, Muslims don't degrade Dowd. They haven't got a clue who he is. There's one song that Surah that's committed to Dowd. But it's plagiarized out of the Talmud. And rabbinic Jews don't really give a hoot. They've got their rabbis that they follow. But there is somebody that their religion is based on shunning. On
shunning Dowd and his promises.
And you tell a Christian your religion is based on shunning Dowd. and transferring the promises that Yahweh made to Dowd to your Jesus.
Jesus.
And even then they wouldn't understand it. They would have no clue. He said, well, who's the Messiah? Well, Jesus. No, it's Dowd. Well, who's the Son of God? Well, Jesus. No, Son of God. No. Who's the King?
King of Kings.
Jesus. No. Who does the second coming apply to? Well, Jesus.
That's a killer. That's a killer.
Nope.
I'm sorry.
Who's going to return as bright as the sun? Well, Jesus. No, that's Dowd too. Who spoke the word of God? Well, Jesus. Nope.
Dowd.
Who's the shepherd? Well, Jesus. Nope. Dowd.
Last I checked, Jesus was a stone. Yahusha was a stonemason, not a shepherd.
Right. Yeah. He never had a flock of sheep.
No.
He was never king. There are 1,000 prophecies regarding Dowd. There's not a single prophecy regarding Yahusha. Not to name them.
And the only prophecies that identify, or not identify, but at least show us what happened to Yahusha are from Dowd.
Yeah, we would have absolutely no way of understanding what happened on Pesach, Matzah, and Bekurim when Yahusha fulfilled his purpose, if it wasn't for particularly the 22nd Mizmor, which Yahusha cited. You know, we were dealing a bunch of shows ago as we were trying to expose the fraud that is the book of Matthew, and we were talking about that horticultural parable where you had this myth that Jesus was talking about a parable where the tenants went off and killed all the workers.
And killed somebody.
And somehow they had rationed in their own mind, hey, if we kill the landowner's son, then we'll inherit all that the landowner has, as opposed to saying, well, if we killed the landowner's son, he's going to see to it that you're either killed or imprisoned, but you most certainly are not going to inherit anything he has. But beyond all that, and of course then Jesus has the audience, the Jews, complete his own prophecy, and then they implicate themselves in their own answer, which is just moronic. And then Jesus says that then therefore the kingdom of God is going to be taken away from you scoundrels, you Jews, and it's going to be given to others. And you're saying, well, but that would mean that God's a liar. But then at the end of it, it has Jesus talk about the cornerstone that was rejected became the main cornerstone, and you're saying, wait a minute, what does cornerstones have to do with this metaphor, this parable about tenants and a farm? And of course, it had nothing. But the line that is given to Jesus to quote that has nothing to do with the story, it's in the 118th Psalm. It applies to Dowd.
Yeah, and it's still something that was of value to make it seem like it was worth listening to.
We're going to find it. It's in the right here in the 118th Psalm. Everything that God promised to Dowd, Christians have claimed for themselves. It was the beginning of replacement theology. Now, as I first translated this, I recognized that, my relationship with Yah is very comfortable, very friendly. It's a parental relationship. So I'm seldom surprised by anything that Dowd expresses when he talks about the nature of his relationship with God in somewhat similar terms. But this was the exception. It took me a while to adjust to this, that Yahweh is presenting himself as Dowd's Azar, his assistant and helper. It's exactly the same term that Yahweh used to describe what Yahweh would do for Adam to make his life more enjoyable and productive, fulfilling and complete. And the very idea that God would see fit to serve his son in this way epitomizes what it means to a parent, to be a parent, while obliterating the religious notion of worship. The fact is, Yah is perfectly suited for this role. And we need what he's offering. We should embrace it. We should accept it. We should celebrate it. The fact is, the covenant family is the very reason for our existence. And with this known, why would anyone in their right mind turn him down? My inferior nature and flawed demeanor won't allow me to go anywhere near this kind of God is my support. I can't even say it. I admire Dowd for articulating it because it causes us to pause and think about just how different Yahweh is from the gods that men have conceived. It is also instructive because when we embark on this journey of discovery and endeavor to study and share his message, we find Yah assisting us every step of the way, helping us understand so that we might correctly convey his words. Fellas, as I was doing this chapter and I got to the end of the 118th Psalm, and I said, there's three more prophecies actually about Dowd that I needed to share. And I said, the first of them is unique in that it talks about the stem of Yishai, and tells us how important what grew forth from the stem of Yishai, which would be Dowd and his words, the influence they would have on us in the last days. And I had forgotten that's the passage where Yahweh introduces the Towrah. And he goes on to say a lot about the Towrah. He says this Towrah is going to have the Spirit of Yahweh on it. And the Spirit of Yahweh is going to do this full, long list of things that the Spirit of Yahweh was going to do for the Towrah so that he could perform this particular mission. And as I was reading that, I said, the fact of the matter is that the Spirit of Yahweh did all those things for Dowd. And the Spirit of Yahweh was doing all those things for Dowd, the ultimate Yahud. And the Spirit of Yahweh is doing all these things for this stem, this sprout, this insignificant implement. Isn't that saying that the Spirit of Yahweh will come upon any one of us and do exactly the same thing? You're going to do it for an insignificant stem, and you did it for the great branch, and it's the exact same list of things.
You're kidding.
Shouldn't we all see ourselves in that role as beneficiaries of exactly the same thing? The empowerment of the understanding, of the insight, of the boldness, of the ability to reason and to get the job done. We're all Towrahs, and the Spirit does exactly the same thing for all of us. The reason the story is there. What follows to be read before Congress as they misappropriate $1 trillion to the national defense every year should have been read before they decided to spend $2 trillion making everyone dependent upon them. It is beneficial and good, and indeed much better, Tob, to rely upon and trust in Yahweh than it is to put confidence in humans. Boy, how can you say it any more clearly than that?
Yep, that's
Tob,
pretty much perfectly stated.
Much beneficial, good, desirable, pleasing, joyous, agreeable, beautiful, valuable, fortuitous, positive, altogether more productive. To place one's confidence in, expect something from Yahweh than it is to put confidence in, to rely upon humans. When you rely upon humans, what you get is their moronic response to the coronavirus. That's what you get. You get them doing everything wrong and then condemning anyone who doesn't capitulate.
Disagrees. Yeah.
The fact is, armies kill. That's what they're trained to do. Yahweh saves. That's what he wants to do. Man is seldom trustworthy, and God always is. Beyond this, walking away from one's country and then trusting and relying upon Yahweh are conditions of the covenant and thus exceptionally wise choices. As we approach Pesach, what a wonderful thing to remember. It is indeed beneficial and good, indeed much better, to rely upon and trust in Yahweh than it is to put one's confidence in Him. The coronavirus is the total shutdown of the economies around the world is just man's malfeasance. It isn't the real stuff of life and death. It isn't the real stuff of prosperity, poverty. The only one who can consistently be relied upon for life, enrichment, enlightenment, for the truth, or enduring love, unfailing mercy, is Yahweh. And the first step of the way is through that door called Passover, where he himself provided the Passover lamb. Celebrate it this week with your matzah, your unyeasted bread, in recognition that it's God's desire to be our Father and adopt us into his family so that we can live in his home. All we need to do is trust and rely on him to do as he has promised. So, fellas, there is a lot more to this. I am very, very hopeful that we'll be able to resolve here the issues with Blog Talk Radio. I really don't know what my problems are, but I hope that we can do it. Mm-hmm. We'll have the opportunity to do this without all of the frustrations, and I hope that everyone who is listening is safe, that you realize that these are times when you should celebrate that Yahweh is trustworthy, that you can rely on him, that this is indeed one of the many birth pangs that is leading to the time of Jacob's troubles. Mm-hmm. And that use it to your advantage. Use it as an opportunity to tell people why they ought not put their trust in man. Tell people that, yes, it is true that things are going to be radically different within 6 or 7 years. And that there's only one remedy. One means the light. One resolution. We've been given a tremendous gift. One that prior to 3 weeks ago we did not have. The perfect opportunity to share. I have never found people as receptive as they are right now. Now, if you could only get out of the house and talk to some people.
Wouldn't run away.
If you could go and break some bread.
Well, I do have the phone.
So you're getting a lot of stratification because you're getting so many people that call themselves conservative, economic conservative Republicans who are praising the government for giving everyone free money.
Yeah, I know.
Are you? How dumb are you?
How dumb are you?
But then you get people that are acknowledging that and are actually open to truth. So this is very much a dividing point for people, and I think you're going to see a lot more people open and receptive coming forward.
No, this is stupid. It is stupid. It's when you create the illusion of money to make people dependent upon government for governments to hand out money. all you're doing is destroying the value of everything that people worked to achieve. That's what you're doing.
Yeah.
You're destroying the value of their homes, the value of their businesses, the value of their assets, everything they've worked to achieve, you're destroying the value of. And since fiat money is nothing but faith, fiat money is a religious concept. It's a debt instrument. You undermine people's faith and the mythology that underpins your entire political and economic system.
Right.
Here you've got Trump saying, well, $2.5 trillion wasn't enough. Now I want another bill that's infrastructure at another $2.5 trillion. Interest rates are so low. Why don't we just borrow another $2.5 trillion? Well, the fact is we're not borrowing it anymore.
Yeah.
No one will loan us the money. We don't borrow it anymore. The Federal Reserve creates the illusion of money so that the government can spend the mythical money. No longer being borrowed. We're just destroying. So that's the nature of what we're doing then. And it cannot continue. It's people's faith in it is going to finally be destroyed. There will be, and it could be even this coronavirus and the shutdown of the economy that's going to cause it to happen. And everything will collapse. Could be a direct result of this.
Yeah.
I'm hoping that we'll have some semblance of economy over the next 7 years. I think we're going to have that. This is where the world is headed. We're just getting a major dose of it right now.
Yeah. Well, Craig, it's a major show tonight. This is really a wonderful show.
You.
So thank you for
thank
that.
you, and
JB.
all the best to you, Kirk. I know it's a tough time. And JB, thank you for being able to call in and start the show because I was unable to call in on the host line. And when I called in on the guest line,
no problem.
all I could do was listen. So
thank you, JB.
If we hadn't done that, JB, we wouldn't have a program. And I understand that the first folks that tried to do it were the Blog Talk Radio just hung up on them.
Yeah, the first time I tried entering it, it's like, enter your PIN. Thank you for calling Blog Talk Radio. Goodbye.
Yeah, it did that once before, remember? Same thing, yeah.
Yeah, and all I can
if I get some free time in the next couple of weeks, I'll look into some alternatives for BTR. I don't know if that's going to happen or not because I've been crazy at work and everything, but I can see what I can do.
Oh, Craig.
What I did today is my subscription had ended and they couldn't ding my credit card anymore, so I had to give them a new credit card, and they're charging me for this next year another whatever it is, $40 a month.
They're good about getting their money.
So I'm giving them my money, but I'm not satisfied with the product they are delivering. Frustrating. Well, anyway, it's not frustrating at Yahowah. That's why he says it's beneficial, it's more beneficial to rely on him than it is to place one confidence in man.
Yes,
good night. Have a wonderful Pesach. Look forward to speaking with you.
Enjoy.
In the midst of
during matzah.
Matzah. Yes. Good night, everyone.
Y'all.
Shalom.
Shalom.
Shalom.